It has been over a week since the zero point 0.4 trailer was dropped with no other info in sight. I wanted to compile everything I know so far from the previous tweets and comments by KU and compile it into one video about everything that is coming to the update 0.4 in Holocure, as well as some few minor speculations. Edit. Of course, as I was editing and making this video, we get news that Tencho will be playing in early access to the 0.4 update in Holocure and might be streaming it next week. This week. This took me so long to make this video that it's already the next week. So first things first, we will look at everything that is confirmed in the trailer that was released in the official Holocure Twitter. The trailer starts off with Gura, as well as a look into the sprite and animation of the friends. We also get to hear the BGM for this stage, which is Candy Go Round. Go stream it, it's a really great song. We then cut to a different point in the playthrough. If you look at the top left corner, we see a new item and a weapon, a piggy bank, most likely referencing the time Risu stole Muna's piggy bank and counted the coins inside in a live stream, which is funny, as well as a tear or a water droplet. There are many water-based holo members, but if I'm going with my gut instincts, I would say this is maybe a Kobo reference. If these are indeed references, I think they are, they might be the first holo ID references in the game. We also see how the water droplet is used. It seems to fire multiple pellets straight at where you are aiming at with a tiny hitbox. We of course also see here the appearance of Miyosha, or the website calls them Mio Fam, so I'm not entirely sure. I might be misremembering how they are called. The Koronesuki, sorry. And finally the Onigirinyas, or just Onigiris according to the website. I could have sworn it's Onigirinyas. After that, we cut to a clip of Tencho rocking a new Dirndl outfit, sorry, I think that's what it's called, as well as two new items, a Band-Aid, which is a Matsuri reference, and a glass of water, which is very likely an Azuki reference, especially if it costs 700 yen. Just like the piggy bank from before, I am not seeing anything here that indicates how they work, what the items do. Next thing is the effect that Tencho gets when she uses her special. KU has mentioned wanting to rework on the Myth Girls, and this might be his attempt to rework Tencho to be more unique. I'm speculating here, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think it might be either a revive type buff in where if Tencho dies within the time period she gets revived, or maybe it just gives her continuous heals per kill maybe. Next is my JP Oshisuise. Her weapon is most likely called a Psycho Axe, from which what I can see seems to be a melee type weapon, so we now have the ability to have two golden axes, I guess. Also from the bottom left, we see two effects coming from her skills. We have a very much a Suikopath reference as well as a star one. The effect ring around her might be from the Suikopath skill or an unknown third skill, we'll have to wait and see. We also see some Tetris blocks falling down and flying and dealing damage to enemies that it hits. We also see that her special attack is of course a reference to her Tetris skills. We then also most likely see her stellar skill, which creates a star around her, and I am quite unsure of what it does. I don't know if it damages or if it does some kind of debuff or buff. We also see some red spots light up, in which after the faint inner light reaches the outer, a mob or a fan will spawn. In this case, it was the SSRBs. We actually see this kind of enemy deployment first in a tweet by KU, where he shows his thought process in designing stage 1 to be somewhat beginner friendly, and that now that most people now know how to play, the training wheels are off. Then we cut to the idol that started it all, Tokino Sora. From what we can see, her weapon is some kind of star blast that lingers to do more damage, though it should be noted that it is currently on its max level, so I can maybe speculate that at base level Sora fires one single star that disappears on impact. Another thing to note is that we also see Ankimo, who is most likely similar to Baba and Friend. We see Ankimo beat up some poor onigiri, and based on its movements, it seems to be more similar to Baba than it is to Friend. Speaking of which, we see more of this design philosophy of KU as we see friends descend all around Sora, and we can see more clearly what I was talking about a while ago with the small, faint internal circle expanding to the outer layer before spawning in some friends. We also see another aura-like skill surrounding Sora, as well as some side targets aiming at, some more poor onigiris. Poor them. And these two are most likely her other two skills besides Ankimo. We then see a montage of different special attacks being used by some of the upcoming characters. First, we see Robocall using an electric field to surround and do damage around her, though we don't know if there's more to the special attack, like does she just stay put or is she able to move. We do see an effect on the bottom left and is similar in icon to her special, so maybe she's able to move while also being able to do damage around her with the electric field. We also see briefly her weapon, which seems to be some kind of sci-fi gun, as well as a new item and weapon. We see what seems to be an ice one, though we will see more of that later in the trailer, as well as Sana's limiter. I am not sure what Sana's limiter does. It might make things bigger like the nightly milk, or it might make things smaller because, a limiter maybe. I'm not sure, it might be something else entirely even. Then we see Sora use her special attack, which sees her sprout wings, which does damage to enemies to her side. This also might be nothing, but we also see Ankimo turn gold, though that could just be from the spotlight that's being cast down onto Sora. Next is Mio using her stand Hatotaros to aura her way to victory. Also, we briefly see possibly a skill of Mio's, which makes a talisman of Hatotaros. We also briefly see her weapon being some kind of tarot card or maybe, as well as a blue card item. I speculate that this is the XP equivalent of Super Chato Time. In a similar vein to how Super Chato Time increases the chance of the amount of holo coins that drop, I predict that this item increases the amount of XP that will drop. Oh, and we also see in this playthrough having -2 coins, though that's more likely because KU is using a developer mode of the game in this trailer and not, something that we can actually do. We then cut to Azuki using her special in where 8 pillars of light stretch out and spin around Azuki, doing damage every time it hits an enemy. We also see her main weapon, which is similar to Iris's, but instead of a continuous blast, it's a single strong musical note. We also see here a new weapon, a potato, either a reference to Coronis X-Potato or Poltato. We also see Azuki's skills in the bottom left, and while we don't have enough footage to see what it does, we at least know that all three are active for a limited time, or at least they stack or something. We then see Fubuki charging into a horde of enemies and killing all of them with no issues. Her weapon is a sweeping strike using her tail, and then also at level 3 it only swings in front of Fubuki, and we will see later that level 4 swings around her. We also see 2 of her skills, one being an obvious reference to being friend-zoned, as well as a sake and hamburger combination, which we know is not the sake in her items. After all, it also seems to have a stack or a timer. Also important to note is that Fubuki seems to be immune when the friend zone is active, and as the timer reaches 0, Fubuki releases a blast similar to the effects of the headset item, after which we see Fubuki take damage. Next we see Miko as well as her weapon and skills. Her weapon swings twice on level 4 while also shooting out the word nye while also dealing damage. We also see 2 skills, one is an Elite Miko reference and another I'm not so sure on, as well as a special which is a Demon Lord Miko reference. Next we see Azuki again. The only thing worthy of note here is regarding Azuki herself is that her skill that has 2 glow sticks in the stacking is a stacking type skill that resets to 0 and releases a blast of musical notes around her when the timer at the bottom runs out. Other thing to note is the enemies dropping on top of you. We see this first on the Suisse clip with the SSRBs, but this seems to be KO's attempt to hinder the fact that you can AFK most of the currently available stage using most of the characters. Next one is something we already knew from the Tenchu clip, is that outfits will now be coming to Holocure. We will be able to dress up our Oshis in our favorite alternate outfits. We currently don't know how to unlock these outfits, we just know it exists. Next one is further upgrades to certain stats in the shop, as well as a few new upgrades. I see one that obviously seems like a buff, one that I can't make heads or tails what it looks like. To me it most looks like a walking stick. one for defense and one that lowers GR. Not entirely sure what GR means. I can't remember if anything resembles GR in Holocure. And finally, in this montage is a new animation for Holozone. It is unsure if this is an updated version of the one that drops from the Golden Yago we saw from an earlier tweet, or a completely new type of Holozone animation. Next, we cut back to Fubuki with two things of note. First is the blue pill, which might be a get well soon pill reference. This update seems to add a lot of Holo ID references, which was sorely lacking in the flagged version of Holocure. We also get a first look of the investigators that will be replacing the cursed bubbles that spawn. We actually learned about this in an earlier tweet by KU on how they want to replace most of the, unofficial mascots. We then cut a bit later to see Fubuki's special attack, which seems to be an unlimited blade works, or I guess the Gate of Babylon would be a more appropriate reference to how it works. After which we then get to see our first gameplay look of Okayu. Her weapons is of course throwing some onigiri at an angle. We also see pizza, which seems to be a unique food item that Okayu has. We also see here the first use of the ice wand we saw earlier. It seems to be a kind of wide short range blast, or at least at level 2, it's exactly like how I described it. We then cut again to Azuki, this time fighting a line of SSRBs as well as some flying onigiris, I think, I'm not so sure. And finally, the final clip we see is the Miko P or 35P, as well as a very threatening Miku Danye, which may be the small ame for this stage, we'll see. And that should be everything from the trailer. From now on, I'll be talking about features that was confirmed by the developer himself, mainly in Twitter. First thing I want to talk about is a simple one. I think something I've already mentioned before, but Holocure will be replacing the unofficial Phantom characters with the official ones, like replacing Yagaterasu with Red Dogs and Bloom and Gloom for the Holocure made Aristocrats. Next one confirmed by the Holocure Twitter account, which adds a pity system to the game, which is in the form of tiers, which you can get by getting any duplicates from any character, and after getting 7 of these, you will be able to redeem it for a character in, I think, any banner based on how it looks. I'm not sure though. Also important to notice that they were teasing that you may be able to redeem other things with your tiers, though again, we're not sure about that. And last but not least, KU officially confirmed that controller support will be added into the game.